from the main surrogate. I'm likely staying longer. Do you want to come out here and do PR operation here?
Oh, that's amazing. I hope you go, because this is the time. We're in the middle of what I would suggest is.
I'm going to just text him and say, I'll get right back to you. I'm doing an interview.
Oh, okay. So we've got Adam Weiss here, who is a public relations expert, advising people around the president, has advised the president of the United States, Donald Trump. He's a PR consultant. Adam, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Charles. I advised Junior. Yeah, Junior, not the president. But
okay.
I met the president and had some meetings with him. Yeah.
Yep. All right. No, you're right in the middle of things over there. And I would argue that we are, and I know this may sound bombastic, but I think we can make the case that we're in the middle of a fascist coup d'etat right now.
Of the highest order. And the rush to throw this down our throats. The moment on Saturday, Rudy Giuliani called a press conference and with his legal team, and just as right after that press release came out, the news networks rushed to call the election for Biden. The president of the United States.
Let me just say, it reminds me of like the way a fascist coup works, where the conspirators march in and they seize the radio station, right?
Right.
They seize the means of communication, and then they declare the new government, which is what 3 major networks did, but the rest of them apparently have not. And then they proceed to purge their enemies and vilify the head of state and place their thugs in various positions of power.
It's funny you said that, because once you said that, it hit me. In I believe it was 92, just as the Soviet Union was opening and perestroika was happening, they kidnapped the Politburo and the communists. They kidnapped Mikhail Gorbachev. And the first thing they did was run to the radio station, the TV station, to overtake the means of communications.
Oh yeah, this is how Castro did it. This is how in 1948, the Bogotazo, the Che Guevara tried to do it in Colombia. They go in, they seize the radio station, they start to make speeches, they declare the new government, they declare the new head as elect in this case. And anything that anything that the existing government does is vilified and attacked, and it's based upon the complete seizure of power.
In this case, the Democrats and the minions in the government, they don't even have to do it, because they have accomplices in the media that just play along with anything they do. Right. Just today, all of a sudden, Pfizer has a vaccine. Amazing news. Like Trump was saying, we're turning the corner for the last couple of, no, how dare you say that, right? The vaccine will be out soon. How dare you say that, Mr. President? You're not allowed. Right away. I'm surprised I didn't give Biden the credit for this.
Yeah, I noticed that they were very quick to say this has nothing to do with Trump. Pay no attention. It's so complete. And the media figures that we're talking about have been at it since day one, the Mockingbird media, as I call them. And that they also, it does appear, and again, this is evidence is emerging, that the various satrapies of the conspiracy, those being Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, maybe Arizona, others which might emerge soon, like North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, that they have deliberately, openly, and even brazenly stolen the election. You have a case in Philadelphia, which of course has been involved in voter fraud for probably 50 years. They actually turned in 27 ballots after shutting down the counting. They didn't even make it pretend. 100% of them list Biden. And not only do they list Biden, but they don't even have any other candidate, mark on the ballot. It's just, it's so obvious and so blatant. Were they being sloppy, or did they actually think that they could get away with this because it wouldn't be covered?
It's just, they hired, let's say they just hired local people, and most of you aren't even like political. They probably just hired people underground and said, go into housing complexes. You could do this easily in big cities like Philly. You get a housing project, you get like 3,000 people you can get once, because you can go into one apartment, there could be 8 people there, right?
Right.
You can go into an old nursing home and there can be 600 people if they conspire with a nursing home, right?
Sure.
I saw a story yesterday, thousands of unusual new registrants to vote, 90-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any 90-year-olds in anywhere that are actually, let's go register to vote. But they said I registered thousands of new registrants in Wisconsin, Michigan, were 90-year-olds this time around.
Right, and not to mention the number of people that already died who are voting. And this is evidence that's emerging in the so-called battleground states, which is interesting also because there was no problem apparently counting the vote in New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, mainly because those states are kind of a foregone conclusion. It's only happening in the the so-called battleground states and they're big political machines like in Milwaukee and Detroit and Philadelphia.
Think about how this played out, Charles. Okay, so we're beginning the night, right? And all of a sudden, the usual states come in. All of a sudden, Fox and other people call Virginia right away. Virginia barely closed, and like Virginia. And you're watching in Florida, Trump goes up 350,000 votes. Why aren't you calling Florida? The only votes left are the panhandles. That's next to Alabama. That's guaranteed to go 75-25 Trump. And they wouldn't call it. That if they called it, then that gives momentum for Ohio. That gives momentum for Michigan. That gives momentum for people standing online in Arizona, right? So purposely, they didn't call Florida because then Ohio comes quick next. Then you have to call Michigan. Then it becomes a normal election, right? So they don't call Florida. And then people are just sitting there waiting, getting distraught. Then they don't call Ohio. Wait, he's up 9 points in Ohio. Why aren't you calling it? There's no way you can. But yet the Democratic states, Virginia's called. Fox had the nerve to call Arizona. Now we're like 17,000 votes apart in Arizona. He might win it, he might not. But look how close we are, right? And yeah,
the thing that troubles me is that around 11 o'clock, and I watched it till about 2 a.m, several states just simply shut down the counting. And this was admitted by Rachel Maddow. I mean, actually, MSNBC did a better job than Fox. Fox was horrible. But, terrible. They shut down the counting before the end of the day. And then all of a sudden they turned it back on again at 4 o'clock in the morning with Biden finding these bundles of votes. Like, in the case of Wisconsin, it was 135,000 votes, I think, or something like that. And, all of a sudden states that, when you went to bed, Trump was ahead. Suddenly the next morning, Biden's ahead in all of them. It really stinks.
Because Democrats are more aligned with culture and Hollywood, right? So if you actually had to write a Hollywood movie on stealing and corrupting election, this is it, right? Everybody, 3:30 in the morning, the networks kind of say, we'll get you in the morning again. Most people are going to sleep, right? Most people aren't paying attention. The Democrats know, wait, we're 172,000 votes below Michigan. Let's get the vans going. Let's bring the votes in. Who's paying attention at 3:45 in the morning? Vans are pulling up, right? Yep. Vans are dropping off ballots. Vans are dropping off. Then there's no poll watchers to watch this. How do you have a president up 700,000 votes in Pennsylvania, and then all of a sudden ballots start getting dropped off in vans, and nobody's there overseeing? Ken Starr said last night on Mark Levin, they all should be invalidated after 8 o'clock.
Oh, any vote after midnight should be invalidated. I mean, it's Pennsylvania, actually, the Constitution, this is one of the keys that I think might save the day, in that the Constitution says in clear black and white that the state legislatures are to decide the question of the election day. And in the state of Pennsylvania, the left-wing governor tried to override the legislature, which did say it would be election day, by going to the state Supreme Court, which is elected in Pennsylvania, which is all Democrat hacks, and they overrode the legislature and said that the day can be extended. That's going to be an issue that'll go to the Supreme Court, and I think when the Supreme Court looks at that, they're going to unanimously have to throw that out because you have a clear. This is like suing over the question of whether the president has to be 35 years old. I mean, it's in language. It's not even up to interpretation. So once they throw that out, then Pennsylvania is going to go to Trump.
Right. They might, hopefully they go to the full extent of throwing it out because, you don't want to see, like, a lot of times the Supreme Court will say, well, we see a lot of irregularities here. We see this wrong and that wrong, but do we want to overhaul an election? I mean, that's where we're going. Hopefully they do, because this is the most corrupt thing I've ever seen in my lifetime. And now the last couple of days we've gotten, let's heal, let's come together. Wait a second. For 4.5 years, you've vilified, you've torn apart this poor man every day of his life by, investigation after impeachment, after negative news story, him, his family, and conservatives throughout the country. Now you're telling us to heal?
Well, sure. Now that they control the high ground.
Wait, you punched us in the face for 4 years, right? You bloodied us up, and now that we're on the ground, let's heal.
That's natural. I mean, now that they control the high ground, they can say that. Now there is this business in Antrim County in Michigan where this domain technology, which apparently counts the vote, had a quote unquote glitch. Now, whether or not that was by accident or on purpose, the fact is that it took 6,000 Trump votes and switched them to Biden. And the reason they discovered it was because down ballot, there was a local Republican politician who was listed as having only gotten 2 votes. And he knew he got more than 2 votes because he had 6 members of his family voting. So now they've turned that around and they've realized and they've apologized, and they're sending those 6,000 votes back to where they belong, which is with Trump. Now, it turns out that this same technology is not only used by over 40 counties in Michigan, but it was just recently employed in several other states, ironically, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and a couple of others. Do we have a way to investigate this? Not only that, but Nancy Pelosi's son is one of the chief owners. I mean, is there a way to investigate this?
Well, I wonder if the judges can get an audit company to investigate this. So I saw Dianne Feinstein's husband is like the 3rd largest shareholder in this company too.
Right. Okay.
We're talking about. So here's another. How is it all these Democratic politicians' husbands or wives are shareholders in this technology? This is
right, exactly. And not only that, but all these Democrat hacks, husbands and wives are married to people at high-level media figures.
Right.
I mean, it's very incestuous, the whole thing.
100%. I mean, hopefully we can get this glitch and figure out what counties they were in and come to some sort of figure out if this has happened all over these states that we lost, right?
Yeah, but the problem, Adam, is that by making this coup a declaration and by having the media and big tech, people like, YouTube and Facebook and the people that are nice enough to carry my show that are completely censoring any opinions otherwise, they now control the narrative. They control the street. They can say, well, they're establishing facts, as the Israelis like to say, facts on the ground. And it's going to be very difficult to make ground on that. I mean, given the fact that there's also a media blackout and that they're going to be able to say, this is the way it is, get used to it. And every day that goes by, they're consolidating more and more power. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to overcome this. It could result in, violent, as it is, all the haters poured out onto the street when it was announced.
They've already are calling the Joe Biden the president-elect, right?
That's right, which is not true and which is wrong.
And today they're saying he appointed his task force for COVID. They're acting as though he's the president-elect. You're not the president-elect until the actual president concedes and the electors actually elect you. That doesn't happen 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. So this whole misnomer of he's the president-elect, he is not the president-elect as much as the media wants to tell us. But again, you're right. Just like they've gotten half the nation to become crazy, loony lefties, they are like, they do, run this narrative and end up, putting in the American public's mind that he is the new president. Because, the one thing about President Trump, more than any other president or politician in my lifetime, I have WhatsApp groups, I have Facebook groups, I have people that never involved in politics texting me, messaging me, can you tell the president this? Can you move forward? Can we fight? So one thing he's done, he's gotten more and more Americans that were never involved in the political system, the political process, fighting hard, upset about this and wanting him to continue, which is a great thing that he's gotten more. Because if we go back, if this was the regular, the Mitt Romneys of the world, they would have conceded already.
Oh yeah, there's a movement around Trump that's unlike anything I've seen in my lifetime, and it's He's brought people out. He's brought minorities out. He's brought everyone out. You know, he got a big increase in the Hispanic vote, in the Black vote, even in the Jewish vote.
Even the Jewish vote, he already got 30%.
Jews for Trump. Jews for Trump in Brooklyn. I mean, they had garbage thrown at them and anti-Semitism. They don't care. I mean, they're out there waving the flag.
That's what's such a corrupt fraud on the American people. There's no way a president, he said, so look, he won by about 400,000 votes in Florida, right? He got 43.7%, almost 44% in New York State. That's a lot of votes. He didn't spend $1 on ads, never showed up in New York, and got almost 44% of the vote. You mean to tell me he did that well in New York State and he lost Michigan? He lost Pennsylvania?
Oh, it's very fishy. And also, I mean,
look at the down ballots too.
Well, that's another thing. I mean, down ballots, you know, it's very a divergent difference. Now, Sidney Powell, who is the attorney for Lieutenant General Flynn and who's really has a good grip on what's going on. I heard her say that Trump has won not only the Electoral College, but he probably has also won the popular vote. If you get rid of all of the people, the dead vote, the cat vote, you know, people's cats voting, so-called. And so I'm asking you, Adam Weiss, public relations expert, what can be done from a public relations standpoint in this particular condition where you have this, you know, declared winner and you've got the big powers consolidating around him like they would with any fascist dictator, and they're controlling the narrative. What can be done at this point?
I think we do the best we can. Keep holding press conference, keep fighting. As my colleague said, Adam, can you come out here and help us with a PR operation in Arizona? The president keep tweeting as much as he can, but even though he's getting censored every other tweet, it's ridiculous. We have a tech industry censoring normal tweets. He's calling out some fraud, and then they're sitting in Silicon Valley censoring the president of the United States. These tech industries should be run out of business.
I mean, I won't even when I title this program in my archive, I won't even use the word fraud because I know it'll be censored. But what can be done in terms of the psychology of your average person on the street who doesn't even know that this is going on, who just thinks that it's going to be Biden, and you know they may not like it, but they've accepted it. What can be done to reach them and to let them know that it's not over?
The president should hold a press conference again. Too bad he held a press conference the other day, and they left. Most of the mainstream media didn't cover it.
Oh yeah, and when they do cover it, they synopsize it. They'll tell you what he said.
This is the most difficult. I mean, if you and I had a teacher class or myself in PR 101, and you'd say, and I would, the one lesson I'd give is anything the president of the United States does is newsworthy. They have to cover it because he's the president. The rules are thrown I'm like, wait a second, Mr. Weiss, you told us everything. Well, then I have to go and say, well, the rules are thrown out the window because he happens to be Donald Trump or he happens to be conservative. But didn't you tell us the news media always has to cover the president of the United States? Yes, but they don't even pay attention to their own rules because that's how biased they are. So,
well, I mean, if there's one thing we can learn from this whole mess, hopefully when at the end of the day, when President Trump takes office for his second term, it just how glaringly biased the media is, and that there is voter fraud. I mean, that's something that, you know, exists. And I think that we want to have every honest vote counted. Once that happens, if God willing, it does happen, and we get rid of the phony votes, then if Biden wins, then fine. But I don't think he will.
For 25 years, I was a local leader where I grew up, and I was in politics. And I said, the media is the most corrupt institution in the United States, fighting against conservative values, people running for Congress, president. The one thing Donald Trump has done, he's galvanized and allowed the American people to see really how corrupt they are, where more and more people now you could say, what about, media is terrible. When I was at the rally the Sunday before the election, half the time, a good portion of it was the whole audience turning around and chanting CNN sucks, which was like, and they do it in a fun way. But meanwhile, CNN will go, it was so dangerous. CNN will go, so dangerous.
They should be condemned because, I mean, it's gotten so bad in the media that, I mean, never had you had newspapers go out with like one anonymous source for some story, and then the next day they retract it and it's phony. It created a day of making hay against the government and the president. They don't care.
And the damage is done, right?
Exactly. It's a hit.
Yeah.
So, but look, we can cry about that all we want. That's all passed. Now the votes happened. Election day is over, even though they kept dragging it out. I just think that we have to talk about what to do now, how to get people to shine a light on what's going on in these states,
And
how to, get the resources necessary to put this up in the press, even if we have to buy media to get this out there and to get the American people on it.
right. If people can go to DonaldTrump.com and support his funds. Support his legal defense fund to help. Every dollar counts. They got to hire thousands of lawyers to go in there. These are some massive counties, some massive legal maneuvering they have to do. This is just an incredible expedition they have to fight here. You're dealing against corrupt counties, corrupt governors, left-wing institutions, left-wing media. To fight this is very difficult,
It is, but I think if we can expose it person by person and reach people who otherwise are fair-minded, but yet, they don't know what's going on. They're influenced, or they only listen to Lester Holt. They don't hear, most people are too busy working to hear the real media like you and I do. If we can reach them, then there will be a genuine movement to put a stop to this. And that's the only way this is going to stop. Enough people have to know about it. There has to be, a rising of consciousness and a rising up of what is going on here.
Correct. Really has to be. But I see more and more because I see people in these WhatsApp groups and these Facebook groups, and people texting me that people I never even knew out of nowhere are just messaging me from Instagram and really deep and sending me articles and messages. I can't help how deep people are getting, and they really are finding alternative news sites that are not the mainstream media. So I'm proud of the awakening that's happening. I must have got this change.org petition sent to me 10 times from different people that want to, and by the first it was sent to me like 300,000 signatures. By last night, there were about 4 million. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, that's encouraging, but we have to remobilize the Trump movement, and we have to do it fast. Every hour counts.
He says, I heard, and hopefully he does this, rallies. He says he's going to go out and rallies right now.
I'm sure. And they're going to already start in with the masks. And yet it didn't stop them from their hate rallies the day Biden was announced. I saw people just hit the streets.
The New York City was filled with honking horns and clapping. I don't even know what they're cheering about because none of them know Biden and know where he stands. And all of it is thousands of people in all these cities. And all of a sudden, no stories about, oh my God, this is a super spreader event. Super spreader event.
No. I'm here in Boston and I saw this, and the whole tonality of it was so hateful and so enraged, unlike the Trump movement where it's joyous and positive. And maybe they've had their moment, they've had their shot. Right. Now it's time to start to expose it carefully, but very resolutely. So Adam, what are you doing now? Where are you going to go to Arizona? What's happening?
I'm going to, I'll decide in a couple, real soon, I'll decide whether to jump and go to Arizona to see if I can be part of Navy's history, and maybe they need me. So maybe it's the right thing to do for our country. So,
well, this is the time. If anybody can do what they can do, throw in your part.
I'm in New York City. We run a communications company. We work with, a lot of leading political figures and media figures and helping do their book launches and PR for other endeavors. They have had a bunch of candidates running for office this time around, so.
How can people reach you in your company?
Just people can call, Adam at amwpr.com, Adam at amwpr.com. It's my email direct. Our website's amwpr.com, amwpr.com. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any good stories or want stories promoted. So,
well, if you want to report fraud.
Yeah, if you want to report fraud another way. So.
All right, Adam Weiss. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me.
Please keep up the good work, Charles.
Thank you. You too. And let's do it again soon.